Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news mashup video today, starting with the official announcement of the Oleksandr Povetkin and Dillian Whyte 2 rematch. So this will be held on the 6th of March, and that had been signalled by promoter Eddie Hearn, but now official. So the Matchroom announcement on social media says repeat or revenge. And Dillian Whyte, obviously, he's looking for that revenge. He says on his social media, it's on time to put in work and settle the score. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Hashtag Whyte Povetkin 2. So that is not the official hashtag, though. It's the other way around, Povetkin Whyte 2. And that's been used in a post by World of Boxing, where they give an update on Oleksandr Povetkin, saying Oleksandr has fully recovered and started his training camp on January 12. He is progressing well in the first stage of his preparation. We hope that the second fight will live up to everyone's expectations and that Povetkin will deliver another spectacular finish. Hashtag Povetkin Whyte 2. And with Oleksandr Povetkin recently having had COVID-19 and that delayed this fight, pushed it back about 5 weeks or so, there will be questions heading into that rematch. Has Povetkin, now at 41 years old and obviously just having had COVID, has that taken anything from him? But there's a lot of interesting storylines. A lot of people wrote Povetkin off the first time, and clearly he closed the show in style. So I will be doing a preview and prediction video. 10 things to watch for. That will be coming out shortly. And Matchroom, as part of their announcement for the upcoming schedule, they announced a number of different cards. But you can see here on screen, there's 3 different cards where different Matchroom heavyweights, sort of the next wave of Matchroom heavyweights coming through, that next generation. So I won't go through all these other fights, but in terms of, if you can see down the bottom of the first paragraph, so Romford heavyweight Johnny Fisher will make his highly anticipated professional debut. That will be on the February 20th card, headlined by David Avanesian and Josh Kelly. On the Povetkin and Whyte card, you also have Fabio Wardley. As it says here, he'll be taking a step up against the USA's former title challenger, Eric Molina. And that fight, I think that's in the bag for Fabio Wardley. Molina does have a decent left hook, but really hasn't sort of thrown it in anger too much in recent years. He's pretty washed and faded at this point. In terms of the style matchup and just the matchup in general, this is a good one for Fabio Wardley. It's a resume builder. He's a guy with about 10 fights on his ledger at this point. It's not a great fight in terms of Molina's not going to pose too much of a challenge, but it's one of those sort of, he can put a little bit of credit on his resume, facing a guy who's formerly fought for a world title, but really not much else. But Wardley to win that one, probably inside 3 or 4 rounds. And also on the Lawrence Okoli and Krzysztof Glowacki card, and that is going to be on March the 20th, you actually have Solomon Dacres. He is a new Matchroom signing, just like Johnny Fisher. He will be making his professional debut as well. And he's been sparring in terms of recent months, the likes of Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois, etc. So don't know too much about him. He was on Team GB, so we'll have to see what he's like. Johnny Fisher, he is a fighter that is signed to SJAM Boxing. Sam Jones's manager has been making all sorts of noises about him. So we'll get to see some of these new guys, Dacres and also Fisher, in action for the first time. So I'm looking forward to that. And prediction on Wardley and Molina, that Wardley to dog walk Eric Molina, who is pretty washed and is a husk of a husk these days. Moving on, you have some interesting news involving Charles Martin that sort of popped up out of the woodwork. So see here on screen, so Fernando Vargas Jr., he on his Instagram story had said he was working alongside former IBF world champion Charles Martin. Stay tuned for his next fight against Bronze Bomber. And as we know, that is not confirmed. But that's an interesting fight if it actually does occur. So right now, Deontay Wilder and his team are sort of locked in sort of mediation proceedings with Tyson Fury, trying to get that third fight with Fury. But if that doesn't pan out, and Charles Martin, who isn't in a fight at the moment and didn't sort of compete at the back end of 2020, if that sort of fight is a plan B and it happens, that's not a bad comeback fight for Deontay Wilder, and it's a good opportunity for Charles Martin too. I think a lot of people people would favour Deontay Wilder to win that one, in terms of Wilder being the taller, rangier guy who, in terms of, there's a speed difference, but obviously if Charles Martin was able to potentially pressure and bully Deontay Wilder, who knows what could happen. But I think a lot of people would be leaning towards a Deontay Wilder win should that fight happen. Not announced at this point, but in terms of this coming out, it's an interesting piece of news. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I could see why it would happen, because currently Charles Martin is number 2 in the IBF, and he is sort of in the running to become the next IBF mandatory. So if they were looking to try get Deontay Wilder back into position for a title shot sooner rather than later, especially with an organisation that does push its mandatories, the IBF could actually be a good option. So we'll have to see where all this goes, but this has just sort of come out of nowhere. But interesting fight should it happen. And just to reiterate, that is not confirmed at this stage, but this is some news that has sort of cropped out of the woodwork. Bob Arum says he would like to sign Oleksandr Usyk if he gets the chance. So Usyk is currently out of contract with Matchroom, but there is one provision that he is still in contract if his next fight is against Anthony Joshua. And I've speculated for some time that I thought that Usyk at the end of his deal probably leaves Matchroom. There has been some cracks and he hasn't seemed too happy at different points in the past year or so, how things have sort of panned out. And I have said before, I thought if he was to leave and go elsewhere, Top Rank would be a logical option, just because he's got some friends and, you know, that sort of stuff that are in that stable. But Bob Arum, talking to Barbershop Conversation, says the only contract he has with Matchroom is they make him a Joshua fight. Otherwise, he's free. So his manager, Igis Klimas, the same manager as Lomachenko and a lot of other fighters that fight for me, I would love to have Usyk as part of my group. I could totally see that happening. The Kazakh heavyweight prospect Azan Kosobutsky is set to return to the ring in February to face Pavel Sauer, and given Sauer has been rolled in around by the likes of Filip Hrgovic inside 3 rounds by Hughie Fury, you'd imagine the talented Kazakh fighter should be able to get him out of there, and likely by stoppage. And in terms of a start to 2020 and trying to build towards some rankings and some potential bigger fights in the heavyweight division, I mean, this is a small step, probably not the step that many would have liked to have seen Kossobutskiy take, but it is his first fight for 2021, and I guess in terms of these COVID times and some restrictions of movement and fighting, it could have just been the best fight out there at this point in terms of the what next. So I'll give him a pass on this one to some extent, but hopefully a bigger and better test next time out after the Sauer, what will likely be a knockout win. Another guy who's returning to the ring soon is Damian Rock. So he is set to face, and this is per the Boxing Voice, Michael Polite-Coffie on January the 30th. And Damian Rock has also posted to his social media, hasn't given all the details, but you can see the top left of the post is Michael Polite-Coffie. And Rock says in the post on the right-hand side, January 30th on PBC on Fox, tune in, ain't too much to talk about. Soon to be 18-0. And in terms of a step-up fight, this is good for Rock, but also for Polite-Coffie. Both these guys are undefeated, and Michael Polite-Coffie is currently 11-0. He just had a good win a couple of months ago against Joey Abel. And in terms of Damian Rock, he hasn't been in the ring since 2019. There were a couple of fights he was meant to have in 2020, didn't materialize. There was talk of a Carlos Negron fight in November, didn't happen. He's recently sort of parted ways with Rock Nation. They promoted him for a number of years. They've just gone out of business. Rock now a free agent. So this is actually a very good fight in terms of, you know, his development, sort of stepping up, and we get more of a yardstick of where Rock is really at. And also same too for Michael Polite-Coffie, who is a guy 11-0. He's a big puncher, but he does have some holes, and a guy like Damian Rock, who is a pretty slick technical operator, although there is some questions about his work ethic outside of the ring, hasn't been in great physical shape in recent years, sometimes coming in, you know, in the high sort of 270s, 280s, that sort of stuff. Hopefully we will actually see Rock in better shape and coming to fight against a guy in Michael Polite-Coffie who has his own ambitions. And Rock, you know, I got to say, is still only 24 years old. So he's a guy that can actually, go somewhere in the heavyweight division. If he can manage to have this fight, get a good win, this could be the start of something very good for Damian Rock. But he will be tested. Michael Polite-Coffie is not going to roll over, and Polite-Coffie will fancy his chances, and he'll be looking for some knockout shots. So Polite-Coffie, Damian Rock, January 30th. I like this fight. And rounding out this heavyweight news mashup video, a little bit of news about this so-called card that Don King is putting on January the 29th in Florida. The so-called return to greatness. See here, this is the promo poster, which he must have paid a school student $20 to sort of whip up or something. But down the bottom right-hand corner, it says it's going to be a pay-per-view event. So some of the questions leading up to this fight was, what's the story with the TV sort of rights to this? What's going to happen? But in general, is this fight card actually going ahead? Because Charr, who's meant to face Trevor, Bryan, says he doesn't believe it's actually happening. He thinks that this is some sort of farce and Don King is trying to rob him of his title. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens with this. But King and whatever here with his website says this is going ahead. The return to greatness. And of course, Charr doesn't feature in the promo poster. King does instead. So yeah, I guess that's classic Don King. But another guy that's meant to be on the undercard is Christopher Lovejoy. And he's actually said, and this is a post on social media, besides questioning this fight because he hasn't had a contract, says he's actually going to be fighting on January 30th in Mexico. So make of that what you will. This whole Don King card seems like it's a house of cards and is about to collapse. So we'll have to see what happens there. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.